All right, everybody, we're going to get started. My name is Mike Van Lear. I am the director of the Career Development Center, and you are uh, all logged into our first presentation of this workshop in the webinar format. This is titled Assessing the Whole Package. And I think that you will find that this is a useful tool as you're looking particularly at job opportunities that are presented to you after graduation. But you can use this at any point in your search for employment. And I'd like to just begin with a couple of introductory comments from myself and from Ryan. And I'll begin by just letting you know I am, as I mentioned, the Career Development Center Director. I've been with Hawaii Pacific University for the last 4 years, almost 4.5, I guess. I have 20 years in higher education, 7 years in the career development area. I also have 6 years of teaching in the primary and secondary education area. Graduate of University of Hawaii, Manoa, and a very happy resident of the state of Hawaii for the last 35 years. And now I'll let Ryan introduce himself.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Ryan Tinloy. I recognize already some of the names in this course, so I hope this will be a very informative session for you folks. I've been with HPU for going on 9 years. Prior to that, I spent 12 years with the Department of Public Safety, and I also served 20 years active duty and reserve in the military. I am proud to be aboard. This is a new format for us. This is actually our second session. Working through this webinar type format. And I think this is something we're going to try to start using more in the future. So again, we hope you folks find this very informative. And now I'll turn it over to Mike Van Lear, our director, to move us forward.
Okay, and just one last comment about this format. If you have any friends that weren't able to log in, do know that HPU is doing a number of these webinars and workshop opportunities. The ones that are being delivered by our Career Center, these will be recorded, and so eventually we'll have these archived so people can listen to them at a time that's convenient for them. Okay, so again, this is titled the Assessing the Whole Package. So now I want you all to imagine, so thinking about that day that you're graduating from college, you've done well. You've earned yourself a very good GPA, somewhere in that high 3.8, 3.9 range. You studied hard. You worked part-time while you were in college. You even did an internship and you didn't get paid for that internship. And now you're kind of thinking about the future, and what's included in that future are probably going to be some student loan payments that will be due shortly. And you've just started your job search. It's been pretty successful. You really did well in your first job interview, and you just nailed the second one as a follow-up with the hiring manager. And now the boss is offering you the job. And what would be most important in that offer? Think about that for a sec. What would be most important when they're offering you that job? Is this what you're thinking? A lot of us, when we're thinking about a job offer, we're thinking, is it going to be enough money for me? Is it going to be the kind of salary that will allow me to pay those financial aid bills, put some money away for vacations, maybe put some, of course, away for savings? Those are, the things that we often think about when we're considering job offers from folks. It's not uncommon for us to put salary at the very top of the list, but this could actually be detrimental to your future career. You got to think a little bit more broadly when you're considering what's included in a job offer. Lots of employers spend considerable time putting together ways in which they can attract top talent other than just money. And so we want to help you to identify how to really determine what would be the things that are most important. So, as I said, or as the slide says, money matters, but some things to consider. Is there a promotional route with this organization? What is it? Is the organization, is it financially strong? And what about, the kind of the employee morale? Is it an environment where people are happy to come to work? Do they collaborate well? Is it a team environment? Do they welcome input from employees on decision making? Is this an organization that supports professional development for employees? Considering that you may be new into the field, being able to expand in your expertise through professional development opportunities is something you'd hope that the employer provides some funding for. What about diversity in the workplace? Are you going to see a workplace that reflects your background, your beliefs? Because if that's not the case, that could be a difficult situation to work in. And of course, lots of us, thinking about the current environment we're in, our health and wellness is particularly important to us in this day and age. And does that employer offer a robust health and wellness benefit package for you? And then you got to think about the work-life balance. Are you going to be working 60-hour weeks on a salary where you don't earn overtime after 40 hours a week? These are things that would these are considerations, I should say, that would be important for you to put in place before you accept a job offer. So let's talk a little further on this. So I'll let Ryan take over from this slide.
Okay. I want to talk a minute about values. Okay. All organizations have values. These values, it moves an organization forward. Everyone here knows the values of HPU. It's aloha, ono, kuleana. But these values are not just about our coworkers, our faculty, staff, or students. These values also extend into our community. As a job seeker, you also have values. What are some of those values? Do you have certain specific morals or beliefs that you hold dear? And does that organization kind of align with your values? So when you're looking for an organization, when you're doing some of that job searching, you want to make sure, do my values align with those two? And are there any advantages when these two align? You betcha. There definitely is some type of alignment, and that's when the magic happens. When what you're looking for and what the organization offers, when it coincides, now you have the makings of a great working relationship, and you have the opportunity to really immerse yourself into an organization. And that's when a lot of good things and positive things happen. So what matters to you? Have any of you kind of thought about that for a moment? Like, what do you value? I know for myself, I value things such as work-life balance. I look for an organization that is diverse. So you want to do like a self-check, find out what values to you. So I want to look at the first bullet point, better ascertain positions you should apply for. When you know what you're looking for and the values that you hold, it enables you to create a better target. Second, it allows you to leverage the interview to assess the alignment between you, your organization, and the position. If I am aware of myself and of my values a lot clearer, a lot more coherent, I can use that in an interview process to better connect with my interviewer. Also, this allows me to know myself better and what I'm worth in terms of salary-wise. I know what's a great starting point, and I know how to negotiate for other than just the salary. If I'm looking for other type of perks, such as benefits, maybe there's stock options, maybe there's travel, professional development. If I know my self-worth and what matters to me, I can use that in the negotiation process.
So let's get to the assessment. We really created this assessment to try to help graduates better understand the values that Ryan was just referencing, and being able to specifically identify through kind of what we've come up with are 6 factors for an assessment of what's important to you in your career. So you see them listed here. And these factors, there's components within them that are built into the assessment. And so when you're going through the assessment, what you're basically doing is responding to how high you value certain components that fall within these 6 factors of employment consideration. When you add all of the components up, the highest score that you could give to any one of these factors would be 20. Each of them has 4 components. And so you would be assigning between 1 and 5 as a value rating to how important that component is to you. And when you go through this, what it allows you to do then is to add up those component totals and kind of start to look at it from a higher level. Like, is compensation really that important to me? And if it is, that's what you're going to value. You're going to put a lot of emphasis on that. Same for organizational health and so on. It depends on what you value. And so by looking through this assessment and identifying or rating these components, it'll help you to really kind of frame what would be most important to you before you're going out in that job search. Now let's look at some ways in which you can take advantage of the results. So after you complete the assessment, here's some questions that you might want to consider. What's the variance between your lowest and highest employment factors? If you've got a bunch of 18, 19, 20 ratings for all of the 6, that's going to make it maybe a little tricky to negotiate, but not necessarily, because if you're rating everything super high, what that means is if the employer has one factor that they're able to negotiate with that is important to you, then that'll work for you. But if there is a great variance between those, then you know what to zero in on. Perhaps health and wellness may not be your most important, or work-life balance may not be, but professional development and career growth are way up there. And so when you go into the interview, you go into the negotiation piece, you know what to zero in on. What we'd also encourage you to do is not just look at the factors, but take a look at what were 3 components that you gave the highest number to. So you don't want to be too liberal with putting everything at, real low or real high. You do need to give just a bit of thought to it, but again, not overthink it. It's kind of a fine line of doing this assessment. So we've got this last part that says other questions, but we'll leave that towards the end so that we can hopefully answer all of your questions. And we'll be looking over at the chat section right after we finish these slides. Okay, so now we want to present a scenario to you. So say that, for example, professional development and career growth were the factors that you ranked highest after you completed this assessment, and compensation was 3rd. You've gone through a job interview and salary was discussed between you and the hiring manager, and you're pretty close agreement on what that compensation is going to be. So that's not a piece that's going to be a heavy negotiation because you're all both kind of in the same ballpark, which is a nice situation to be in. You don't have to fight for dollars so much. But little was discussed about professional development, and the manager did indicate that she likes to promote from within the organization. So you know a little bit about career growth, that it's probably going to happen within the organization, but there wasn't much conversation maybe around professional development. And what you might also want to think about as you're going into this interview are questions around how do people get promoted within the organization? When someone's been promoted within the organization, what kind of effort did they make in their work? What kind of projects perhaps did they take on? Were there additional responsibilities that they assumed that helped them with that promotional opportunity? So again, think about some questions that you would like to ask. And again, we can go through those when we get to the chat section at the end of the slides. So trying to find alignment. So what we're going to do now is go through really what I'd consider 3 stages on the path to employment. And Ryan kind of talked about this a little bit at further back. And so what you want to be doing in your search for work is to really start paying attention to what's in that job post. What indications are the employers giving you in the posts that you read about what is important to that organization? What do they value? Does it align with what you see? Do they talk about work-life balance? Do they talk about opportunities for the employees to work together as a team on volunteer projects? That could indicate some organizational health. You can also look at social media feeds that the organization puts out. What does their Twitter feed say about them? What does that indicate? And do you see values coming out in the feeds that they're putting out through either Twitter or through Instagram or through Facebook? These are great indicators as to how people or organizations express their values about what's important to them. And then lastly, we would encourage you to scour the organization's website. Look through their career page. A lot of time in a careers page, what you'll see is more indication about the health and wellness benefits, about the number of vacation days that they offer each year, how many holidays do they offer employees, paid holidays, what is the health and wellness benefit, for example? Is it for just you as an employee, or does it cover family members? And most importantly, look for the mission, vision, and value statements. That will tell you a lot about what the organization values and what they aspire to be as an organization. So now the next stage in that search for employment would be the interview itself. And during the interview, a couple of things that we would recommend you focus on learning more about, but be careful in broaching certain topics. So if we look at the 6 factors of this assessment, these value factors, finding out more about organizational health, professional development opportunities, and career growth, those are certainly topics that you can broach in the interview to learn more about. So if the point in the interview gets to, do you have any questions for us? And you rated areas such as career growth, professional development, or organizational health highly, you might want to find out more about how they support that. And if you're not sure exactly what to ask, go back to the components that you gave high scores to and ask specifically about those components. What we would encourage you not to ask questions about, unless, again, this is the caveat, unless the interview initiates discussion, we wouldn't encourage you to say, what are the health and wellness benefits? What will I be paid? Do I get to work only 40 hours a week? And if I work extra hours, am I compensated for it? Those aren't topics that you'd want to broach with the interviewer unless, again, they bring up these topics. If they bring them up, then it's open game to talk about them. So now you get to the negotiation piece. Maybe you, like as we presented earlier in the imagined scenario, you've been offered this position. And so now it's time for the negotiation piece. If you're offered this position, this is really the chance for you to zero in on those employment factors that you highly value. And consider focusing on maybe 3 to 5 components that you ranked really high and try to negotiate for those if certain things aren't working out exactly as you wanted. Perhaps the salary isn't exactly what you were looking for. Maybe you were hoping to make $48,000, $50,000 a year, and they're offering $42,000 a year. But you've also rated professional development highly. Well, are there conferences that you can attend? Do they provide compensation for you to attend those conferences? That would be a great time to zero in on professional development. That's just one example. And it's okay at this point to negotiate for any of the pieces that you ranked highly or the components that you ranked highly. This is the chance, because once you accept that position, you can't go back and do any more negotiation. So at that point, if the job's being offered to you, anything can be discussed: salary, wellness, health and wellness, all those kind of things. But again, the emphasis on this whole presentation is to make sure you know what you value most and why do you value it. If you express your values and the reason you value those highly to the organization, it's going to be easier for them to understand, why is this individual really zeroing in on a particular area that maybe we haven't discussed. And you might say, I'm new to this field. I've just graduated from college, and career growth is going to be really important to me, and so is professional development. I want to progress in my career, and letting them know that, express those things, so that when you say to them, explain to me how somebody gets promoted, explain to me the opportunities you provide for professional development, it will make a lot more sense to the employer, and it'll be an easier negotiation process for both of you. Okay, so if you have additional questions outside of this webinar and you would like to speak with Ryan or myself about this, or maybe you're going into the search for work, we can answer additional questions. That's our phone number there, probably right now during this shelter-in-place situation that we're all dealing with. The best way to contact us would be at the cdc@hpu.edu email address, and we can communicate best through that. So at this point, I am going to stop sharing the slides, and we are going to open it up if you have any questions. And Keela, is it possible at this point to unmute our attendees? Okay, it doesn't look like that, but we certainly have the Zoom group chat section. Do you folks have any questions via the chats? Okay, no questions. Again, you've got our contact information. If you would, oh, there we go.
Oh, we got a question. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So from Christina, what about relocation? Okay, that's not in here, and that's a good point. Christina, I might put that in something like the perhaps the compensation piece. You often see that with employers that do offer that do have relocation assistance available to folks. They will list that usually as a dollar figure. It's usually going to be something like $5,000, $10,000 to help someone relocate to somewhere. And so I would say that you might look at that in somewhere in that compensation piece. And so what it could be, perhaps they're offering a salary that's a little lower than you were expecting. Perhaps it's $3,000, $4,000 less, but you're letting them know relocation is going to be an expensive piece for me. I'm going to have to, upend my life, move a lot of my belongings. And so I would need some assistance with that. And that might help you to get that compensation that you're looking for, at least factored into the relocation part. Does that answer your question? Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. So I see your follow-up question. Would it be something to negotiate for? Absolutely. So I would say that if they're offering you a salary that's actually above what you were hoping for, I wouldn't encourage you not to take what they offer, but you might need to say, that's a great salary. I'm really happy with what you're offering. Do know, though, that an important part for me is that I am also needing to relocate and will need some upfront expense or upfront compensation to assist me with that. And that way, it may be a piece where they say, well, we don't usually do relocation, but you know what? We can help you with that relocation, but we would have to reduce the salary. I hope that helps. Ryan, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's a great response. Normally, relocation is attached to compensation, so that's where I would attach that value.
Okay, great questions. Anyone else have any questions for us? Well, everybody, we really appreciate that you joined us. Again, this is being recorded, and so if you do know someone that would benefit from this presentation, encourage them to look into our website, the Career Development Center website, probably in about 3 to 4 weeks. It will take us a while, but we'll try to get them uploaded there. And if you have not completed the assessment, make sure that you do that. And when you complete it, it may generate some more follow-up questions, feel free to email Ryan and I. Again, cdc@hpu.edu. You see it down below there in the group chat. We thank you. And if there are no more questions, we will bid you aloha. Thanks so much, everyone.